You ever stop and think about all the invisible rules that pretty much run our lives every single day? I mean, from how you walk down a busy street to how you sit on a train, our lives are basically choreographed by this complex social code that we all just know, but nobody ever sat us down and taught us. Okay, so take a look at this. We've all seen this, right? Now, this isn't just some guy sitting down. This is a perfect example of one of those unwritten rules playing out right in front of us. To some people, it's rude. To others, it's totally normal. But what it really is a nonverbal statement about how we use space. And a lot of times, it's about power. And this gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. What exactly are the invisible rules happening here? Why can the way someone sits down cause such a strong reaction? And here's the crazy part. How do all of us, total strangers, immediately understand what's going on without anyone saying a single word?
Well, to answer that, we gotta crack the hidden code that lets millions of people move around in public together without it being total chaos all the time. It's like a silent social dance. And it all kicks off with an idea from the sociologist Irving Goffman.
He had a term for it, civil inattention. And this doesn't mean ignoring people. Actually, it's kind of the opposite. You know that quick glance you give someone on the sidewalk right before you look away? That's it. You're basically signaling, hey, I see you, I recognize you're a person, and I'm not a threat. It's this tiny little interaction that makes the whole system work. Seriously, think about it. It's that little shuffle we do to let someone get by, or the way we all suddenly find the ceiling fascinating in a quiet elevator. We're constantly showing that we see each other, but we're careful not to do anything that seems too intrusive or hostile. This polite ignoring is, believe it or not, the foundation of public order. But that silent nod is really just the beginning. The next layer of this code is all about what we're communicating with our bodies. Because a lot of the time, without us saying anything at all, our posture is telling a whole story about gender, status, and power. Yeah, studies show a really common pattern. Men often take on these open, relaxed postures, controlling more space, what we now famously call manspreading. On the flip side, women are often socialized to take up less space, with more closed, upright postures, think legs crossed, hands in the lap. And these aren't just personal quirks, they're learned behaviors that reflect and, frankly, reinforce bigger social norms. And let's be clear, this stuff is learned. The political philosopher Iris Marion Young pointed out that phrases like throwing like a girl are used when we're kids to enforce specific ways of moving and being. So what that tells you is that these physical habits, they aren't just natural. Nope. They're the result of a whole lifetime of social training. This idea of social training leads us right into one of the coolest metaphors in all of sociology, also from Irving Goffman. He basically said that all the world's a stage, and all of us, well, we're the actors. Goffman called this impression management, and whether we realize we're doing it or not, we are constantly tweaking our behavior, our words, even our clothes to try and control how other people see us. Think about a job interview, a first date, or even just posting on Instagram. We are performing a specific version of ourselves. We're all managing our own personal brand. And to break this down, Goffman gave us two amazing concepts, the front region and the back region. The front region is the stage where the performance happens. So think of a waiter, all polite and helpful with the customers. But the back region, that's backstage. It's the kitchen, where that same waiter can drop the smile, vent about a rude customer, and just be their real, unfiltered self. This picture, this is the back region perfectly captured. Away from the customer's eyes, the show is on pause. And we all have these places in our lives, right? It could be your car after a rough meeting or your living room after a long day at work. It's that place where you can finally take off the costume and just breathe. And sometimes we're all in on the performance together. A classic study of gynecological exams actually laid it out like a four-act play. To handle what could be a really awkward and intimate situation, everyone, the doctor, the nurse, the patient, they all perform very specific roles. They work together to temporarily change the patient from a person into a clinical body. This allows the exam to happen professionally. And then afterward, they transform her back into a person to talk about the results. It's an incredible, coordinated social performance. So what happens when someone just refuses to play their part? What happens when you break the unwritten rules? Well, that's when you see just how fragile and how absolutely essential this whole social code really is. So this sociologist Harold Garfinkel wanted to expose these hidden rules, and he came up with this wild idea.
He had his students conduct what he called breaching experiments. The job was simple. Just go into a normal, everyday conversation and pretend you don't get it. Just act like you don't understand any of the unspoken context and ask for everything to be spelled out. And the results were, well, they were explosive. People got confused, then frustrated, and then angry, like really fast. In this actual experiment, a student did this to her husband, and his reaction went from confused to furious in seconds. It's perfect proof that our entire social world depends on all the things we don't have to say. Now, sometimes breaking these rules isn't an experiment. It's about power. Sociologists call this interactional vandalism. This is when a person, usually with lower social status, deliberately shatters the rules of conversation that someone with higher status takes for granted. And it can be really unsettling.
A study of street harassment showed exactly how this works. In it, a man named Mudrick keeps trying to talk to women. And even when they give all the clear, nonverbal signs that they want the conversation to end, that civil inattention we talked about, he just keeps going. He's breaking the fundamental rules for how you open and close a conversation, and it leaves the women feeling threatened and thrown off balance.
So all of this brings us to right now, to the 21st century. So much of our lives are lived online. What happens to all these invisible rules on this giant new digital stage? Are we writing a completely new social code from scratch? First off, the sheer scale is just mind-blowing. By the end of 2018, more than half the entire world's population was online. In one way or another, we are all performing on the biggest stage humanity has ever known. And for younger people, this stage is where so many of their social connections are actually built. Just look at the data from Pew Research. A big majority of American teenagers say they've made new friends online, mostly through social media and gaming. So these digital worlds, they're not just some sideshow to the real world anymore. For a lot of people, they are the main event. But here's the catch. This new stage brings some intense new pressures to manage our impressions. That same Pew survey found that almost 40% of teens feel this pressure to perform, to only post stuff they think will get a lot of likes. And this constant performance has real downsides. A whopping 88% feel people share way too much. And for many, it leads to actual fights with friends and just feeling worse about their own lives. It all makes you wonder, how are those old unwritten rules changing? Is leaving someone on read the new form of civil inattention? Are our private group chats the new back region, where we get ready for our public online performances? In a world where our front stage is a perfectly curated Instagram profile and our backstage is a secret DM, is actually physically being there with another person still necessary for a real, genuine human connection?